going to restart now. We are holding in Parshas Miketz, Perek Mem Dalet, Pasuk Aleph. Vayitzav S10 al beisoy leimor. Yosef gave the command to the Asher al Beisai. This Asher al Beisai has been pretty active in Perek Mem Gimel. He was the one who's the maitre d'. He's been bringing them into the house, taking care of them. Okay, and here he gives them a command. And you'll notice then the next pasuk tells us, the end of the next pasuk says, he fulfilled Yosef's words. Vayas kidvar Yosef asher diber. So there's a command, and the pasuk points out that the command was executed. And the reason why, I think, I'm not the first one to say this, the reason why the pasuk speaks out that he commanded him and he did as Yosef told him to do, is because really he was told to do something unethical, right? And in contrast, so therefore it's saying, oh, Yosef said you got to do this, and he did it, even though it didn't make sense to him. The contrast is to the last time in Perek Mem Beis, Pasuk Kaf Hey, where also he told a special command to someone. Here it doesn't specify to whom. Perek Mem Beis Pasuk Kaf Hey, he gave the command to fill up their kalim with grain and to return the kesef. So there the pasuk doesn't say, and they did. What? Right, but doesn't say kidvar Yosef asher diber, like, oh, he said it, we got to do it. Why? Because there, ultimately, he was doing them a favor. Because he says, no, God gave you a gift. He says, the kesef, your God and the God of your fathers gave you a treasure, and it's a miraculous gift from God, and fine. Over here, he's actually going to use the discovery of the Agbiya against them as a libel, right? Okay, so here was his command: fill the amtochos of the people with food, kasher yuchlon says, as much as they could bear. Why does it say this? I don't know. We're going to read a few psukim and make some comments. Some of them we're not going to get back to, some of them we will. What's the significance of saying fill it up to the top? I don't know. V'sim kesef ish b'fiam tachtoi. Okay, now, this is very significant. Why is it significant? Because it doesn't seem to play any role in the rest of the chapter. The rest of the story goes, this is the Agbiya. We discovered the Agbiya. What about discovering the kesef? They go through every person, right? Oldest to youngest. And the youngest, they find the Agbiya, boom, we found it. Now, till then, they were finding the kesef, right? Because they put the kesef as well. So, but yet there was no big deal about that. All he came running after them was, you stole the Agbiya. The kesef doesn't seem to be anyone's concern. And yet he puts the kesef in. So what is the function of the kesef? So the kesef is a replay. Just like the first time giving them the kesef was a gift from God, so the kesef is also a gift from God. What?
The first time they were nervous about it. The first time they were nervous, oh no, he gave us the kesef.
Now they learned already.
Now that it already happened.
Exactly. No, it's fine. And so exactly, he's searching through the sacks, and Bagadol he finds the kesef.
Right.
And like, see, Hashem likes us. He gave us another kesef. Again, he gave us the kesef. Fine, no problem. But then the Agbiya is a problem. So we'll have to think about that. We'll talk about that. Why the Agbiya is sort of an antithesis. Okay, but yes. So we're supposed to understand the kesef in this story, in light of the kesef in the other story. Nonetheless, we still have to ask what's the function of the kesef. Right? Meaning we explained it away. We said why the kesef didn't raise any suspicion because it's a gift. But what's it here for? Could have done the whole story without the kesef. The Agbiya. The story is about the Agbiya, right? Next pasuk. Ves Agbiya hakesef. My Agbiya, the kesef one. Tosim b'fi amtachas hakotoin. Now, for some reason, it's significant that the Agbiya is kesef. I don't know why. Perhaps we'll have an explanation for that soon. Notably because it's stressed that the Agbiya is kesef, it becomes notable that in Pasuk Ches, they deny that they may have stolen anything by saying, how would we steal kesef zahav? Now, why do they say kesef zahav in Pasuk Ches? Because at that point, he hadn't told them that they stole the Agbiya of kesef. He just said, how'd you take that? Don't you know my master drinks from it? So they knew that they were accused of stealing the Agbiya. But it wasn't yet identified as being a Agbiya of kesef. And they said, we wouldn't steal kesef or zahav. I'm just pointing out that the material of which the Agbiya is made gets a lot of attention here. For some reason, it's significant that it's kesef. And before they saw it, they said, whether it's silver or gold, we wouldn't have stolen it. Okay? So so that's a question. Why is it significant? That's kesef. And does that have something to do with the fact that there's other kesef here, right? There's silver, some kesef-ish, and that kesef is okay. No one has a problem with this kesef, but the gevia, which is, by the way, also kesef, is going to be a big problem. So that maybe is a clue. Okay, so why are we putting it in the sack of the koton? Because obviously this is something to do with Binyamin and his brother. We'll have to figure out what that is. Another thing that's happening over here, and this is something we spoke about in the past, is that there's a replay of Rachel stealing the truffle. Truffim are some magical or idolatrous kind of objects, and Rachel takes them from Lavan. Lavan's a menachesh, and Yaakov says whoever has them will die. Kitzer, all those same things happen here again. There's this menachesh, Yosef, don't you know I'm menachesh? And the son of Rachel, Binyamin, is caught with the Gavia that this idolater, this seeming idolater, Yosef, seems to be like an idolater, uses for Nichosh, and death is pronounced on him, but then maybe not, and that's the whole discussion. Maybe he won't die. And that's the Medrash points it out, that when the Gavia was found in Binyamin's sack, the brothers said to Binyamin, "Oh, it's Ganev, the son of a Ganev." Okay, which we'll get to that. We have to get to that in the story. Did they actually think that Binyamin took it? It's not what the pasuk. It doesn't seem to be what the pasuk says, but we'll get to that later. But the point is that my point is merely that the Medrash brings us back to the story of Rachel having stolen the truffle. Connects it to that by saying, "Oh, when the Binyamin found it by Binyamin, they said you're the Ganev, your mother was the Ganev as well." Okay, next pasuk. Vayaz kedvar Yosef asher diber. Okay, haboker or. It was morning. The morning was light. Okay, so now this is very interesting because we have to, typically when you're in Chumash, you generally look at like a very specific thing. You sometimes forget the whole context. And the context of it is very important, and this pasuk puts it in context because this whole scene is really a continuation of their party. How do I know that? Because Perek Mem Gimel ends, they drank together and they became drunk. And then Perek Mem Daled begins without any passage of time. It just says, he told them, he gave the command. So we're in the middle of that night when there's a major party going on. Yosef is already planning something. And then when the daybreak comes, boom, they send them out. Okay? And look later, when they come back to Yosef, in Pasuk Yud Daled, they come back, Beisa Yosef, Vehu Aidenu Sham. Aidenu Sham from when? Oh, because we had in Perek Mem Gimel, we're going to meet in Beis Yosef, and they come to the Pesach Habayis, that whole business Beis Yosef, and they meet Yosef there. They have a party. In the morning, at the first break of dawn, they're sent off. They maybe fell asleep in their chairs, I don't know, on the couches, drunk maybe, and everything happened so quickly. You notice also in Pasuk Dalit, he says, hurry, catch them quickly, right? Kumradev achrei anoshim, lo hirchiku. So everything's happening very quickly, and they come back, and Yosef is still in that very spot where they had the party.
Well, we know that Yosef was trying to manipulate the situation, right? He was trying to make the rule come true.
Okay, that's your reading of this story, perhaps. I don't know. I'm not so sure. Ramban says that, yeah. What? That Yosef is trying, that Yosef feels like it's his job to make the Nebuah come true?
Yeah, that he's trying to influence events.
Yes. For what end?
To bring everyone back together.
Okay, right.
So
that may be.
He had a whole scheme. I'm going to start everyone in a party, get everyone really drunk.
Good, fine.
Hide the Gavia.
That could be.
Send them out.
That could be,
don't
right.
Bust them.
Right.
I'm still
That could be.
Gavia.
Yes, no, you definitely a proper
seems to be the
I know, but you see that you still have to explain why the pasuk stresses that everything happened while as a continuation of that same story. That's what I'm noticing here. That we're supposed to read this as the party seemed to have been a great success, but it was quickly turned into Yosef was still there at the place of the party, and notice also that what does he demand him about the Gviya? When he catches up to him, he says, Pasuk, this is what my master drinks with. So we're still on the theme of drinking.
Right.
Vayishtu vayishku ima, and then they make over this Gviya.
Right.
So that's the var. It's like, wait a second, we just drank with this Gviya, and you guys stole away from the party at the first crack of dawn, and you grabbed the Gavia. That's what's going on over here. And Yosef is still sitting there, and says, where's my Gavia? See, that's what's, you have to read this as, it's not, we read it as like a new parak, a new event. It's not. It's a continuation, okay? Now, in light of the fact that it's a continuation, I want to focus on this pasuk about Boiker Or. Because remember we had also, when it came to the time that they ate together, there was also a big focus on timing. And this is in pasuk Hey, where it says that they ate, they were going to eat. Yosef came bat Saharayim. Okay, so Yosef came to the house bat Saharayim at midday, full light, and then the next thing happened at the beginning of light. Haboiker, fine. Okay, so I want to talk about what the significance of that. So in other words, if we read, number one, we established its continuation. Number two, we noticed that there's a significance of timing, that their first meal began Batzarayim, but seems to maybe have gone till the evening and perhaps beyond. And then the next part of the story happens at the morning, but Yosef is still sitting there in his bayis, didn't go out to work, and he's wondering where his Gavia is. Okay? And by the way, didn't go out to work is actually significant. So let me explain. We mentioned when we learned that the party happened at Saharayim. Okay? What's the significance of that? So look in Koheles. There were 2 points about Saharayim. One of them is in Koheles, and the other one is in Amos. 2 places that reflect on the significance and the meaning of the fact that the significance and the meaning of the fact that Yosef's party took place at Saharayim. Okay? And this is in Koheles, Perek Yud Aleph. Pasuk Tes Zayin. And Koheles, we've been reaching for Koheles since the end of Parshas, Parshas Vayeshev. Sarmashkim Saroifim, that really brought us into Koheles, and we've been there ever since. Meaning Koheles is a pirush, as it were, and is using the Yosef story very much. And specifically in this parak and in the next one as well as in very many other places in Koheles. Okay, so here I want to focus on the psukim that are related to
the whole parak?
What?
Which parak?
So I'm in parak Yud. I'm focusing now on pasuk. Let's start at pasuk Tezayin. Pasuk Tezayin says like this. Okay, Yud Tezayin in Koheles. Iloch eretz shamakich nar. Woe to you, land, the king of which is a nar. V'sarayich b'boiker echelu. See, a young king who wants to party, so he doesn't go to work. First thing in the morning, he wants to have let's start partying. That eretz is doomed. Asherich eretz shamakich ben chayrim. Fortunate is a land whose king acts like a free man. Okay, I'm not sure what that means, but notably, Yosef started as a nar and was an eved. Shomi tanu nar every eved, and here he became a ben chayrim, and he doesn't eat in the morning. V'sarayich ba'es yachelu. He eats at the right time. So the significance of Yosef meeting the Batzarayim is that points to the fact that Yosef is a good ruler, because the derelict ruler that cares only about enjoying the trappings of power eats in the morning, and that indicates that the eretz is not going to be well run. The good eretz is the place where the king eats ba'es at the right time, b'gvura v'loy bashsi, with might and not with drinking. Okay, so now here we have Yosef. This is one of the significations of one of the meanings of the fact that Yosef ate bat Saharayim, that he doesn't eat ba'boker. So that indicates that he's not the nar that he once was. He became the good kind of sar, the one that his aretz is going to prosper. But here we have him now in the boker, still there, and concerned with his drinking. What? With his cup. So, but you're not supposed to eat ba'boker and b'shsi. You're supposed to wait. He's supposed to first go to work. He's running a country. But apparently, what's being presented to the brothers at this juncture of the story is a Yosef who is more concerned with his party and has nothing else to do but to think about his cup. So this is the Yosef that's sort of, as it were, backtracking, regressing, and acting like a nar acts, and indicating that his land, Mitzrayim, is a woeful land. Okay, and what this brings us to is the following tension. Yosef was sent to Mitzrayim, so, and this is something that we've been discussing throughout the last part of Miketz. Is Mitzrayim now a dangerous place for Bnei Yisrael? So, well, we have Yosef there. Okay, but what's Yosef up to? Is Yosef the same nar he used to be? Then that means he went off. That means he's in big trouble. That means let's say, did Yosef develop, okay, in Mitzrayim? Well, what's the alternative? Maybe he went after Eshes Potiphar. Maybe he never grew up, right? We know the story because we know what happened. We know Yosef did grow up. But the risk is, the danger of Mitzrayim is that maybe Yosef is still a nar. Maybe Yosef is still going to abuse his brothers, like he's suggesting he's about to do here, take revenge on them. But then he says, of course, I'm not going to do that, right? But there's a risk that Yosef is going to be petty, didn't grow up, only got the negative aspects of Mitzrayim, and now Mitzrayim becomes Eloch Eretz, becomes a place that's dangerous for Bnei Yisrael. And this is what the end of Parashas Miketz is showing, is that it's showing the side of Yosef who's acting like a nar, and then would suggest that the land over which he governs is a place where we're not allowed to be. Okay? So in other words, what I'm saying is like this: the theme of the end of Miketz is this Egyptian situation is terrible. It's going to be the end of Bnei Yisrael. Maisa, it ended up working out, right? But there's a possibility that it wouldn't, in general, meaning Golos Mitzrayim. And that's exemplified by the fact that Yosef has these two sides of him. The side that he's presenting to them now is the side of the king of Egypt, who's he's out to get us, and he's a terrible person. He's a terrible person. He's acting like the nar that he used to be, and he's eating and drinking in the morning. That's the nasty side of Yosef, the side that he's presenting to them, but actually is not. It's only a play. It's only a game. Okay? Where's the water? Here it is. Okay, and if you look at the other pasuk there in Kehelas, look at pasuk Tezvav, prior pasuk. It says that the amal of the Ksilim wear them out. Asher lo yoda laleches el ir. They don't know how to go to the city. Here we have, in Parak Mem Daled, we have a focus on the ear. In Pasuk Daled it says, Heim yotzu es ha'ir lo yirchiku. They weren't far from the ear. And then Pasuk Yud Beis says, they returned by Yeshuvu ha'ira. So these people, the brothers, don't know something. As he says to them, Halo yadatem, Yosef says to them, don't you know that I'm a nachesh? So there's something that they don't know, and therefore they don't know how to navigate the ear. They leave the ear, but they're quickly brought back. And that's the pasuk there in Kehelas, that the fools who don't know how to travel to the ear. Another pasuk there in Kehelas, took a look at the next pasuk there, actually two pasukim after this, Perek Yud pasuk Yud Tes, has lechem, yayin, and kesef. And here they get the bar, but they stole the gavia. Right? They have three things in their sacks. They have grain, kesef, and a wine drinking cup. And then that pasuk there in Kehelas, two pasukim later, talk about lechem, yayin, and kesef, whatever the pasuk is doing. Okay? Next thing in this pasuk Gimel, so that's Haboker. This is significant. It's the significance of timing. This story is using timing of events to give some allusions. Okay, they were sent along with the donkeys. The donkeys also have a shtickle outsized role in the story. Why is it mentioned that they were sent away with the donkeys? Why does it say in pasuk Yud Gimel that they reloaded their donkeys? Okay, I want to point out a parallel. The other story of stealing divination tools, Rachel, she hid them in the saddle of the camel, Kahargal. Okay, so here the Gavia is found on the donkey, and there the Truffin were not found, but they were on the camel's back. Okay, maybe there's some meaning there.
We had that in the calendar.
Huh?
We already spoke about this.
We did? When? Remind me.
I think we spoke about this
Yeah? Before, I think. Yeah, right. Oh, taking us, right, taking us, right. There it said, right, he's going to take us and our chamorim, right, that's what we spoke about, yes. We'll have to see if that sheds light on this. We'll have to look back, I'll have to look back at the notes. Yeah, why they're busy with the donkeys, right. I'll have to look at the notes here, I forgot what the discussion was, see if it helps for this. Okay, pasuk daled, heim yotzu es ha'ir lo hirchiku. So again, the point is that everything's happening quickly. V'yosef amar l'Asher said, kum, redoif. I wanted immediately, Achri Anoshim, he sagtam, catch up to them.
Because the guy already thought that he was pulling shtick.
Right.
But then Yosef had to tell him, go get them.
Right, okay, so what?
Like, why did he think he was pulling shtick? Well, okay, he told me to put the Gavia.
Right.
He gave me the money also. So,
he didn't know necessarily.
but
Right.
apparently he did.
Why?
Because he was nervous about it.
Right, no, maybe he was nervous because it was weird. Maybe that, right, so maybe the answer is, I told him, he was like, Gavia?
Okay.
First he's like, first he said to Yosef, the Gavia, and Yosef's like, what, you didn't hear me? So like, ask Ashadiva. And then he didn't know what was going on. It's like, why are you giving them your Gavia? Like, okay. Maybe they want to give him Kasef, whatever. Why are you giving them your Gavia? So then so he didn't know, right? It's an interesting point, right? Right, interesting point. The Ashel Beisai is sort of like doesn't know what's going on, and then he has to be told what to do. Very interesting point. Yeah. Right. V'sagdom v'amatu alehim lama shilamtem ro'ot tachas teva. You have returned evil instead of good. And the next pasuk says harei oisen. So they did evil. Okay. So what's his accusation? They've returned evil instead of good. He did good to them. He took such good care of them, and they repaid him with evil by taking his gavia. Now look at this amazing thing. Yirmiyah Hanavi, Perikut Ches and Sefer Yirmiyah. Yirmiyah was thrown into a pit. Yirmiyah had a very tempestuous relationship with his townspeople, who tried to kill him because of his nevuos of doom. It's not fun to be a Navi of doom. And there's a lot of parallels we spoke about in Vayeshev, a lot of parallels between Yirmiyah and Yosef. There's a lot of using the Yosef story in Yirmiyah's case. And like I said, Yirmiyah was thrown into a pit. And here's what he says about being thrown into a pit. Perik Yud Ches Pasuk Chaf. Hayishulam tachas toiva ra'a. Will evil be paid instead of good? Ki charu shucha l'nafshi. They dug a pit to kill me. These are his townsfolk, I think. Zachar amdi lefonecha. So he says to Hashem, he's davening to Hashem. He says, remember that I stood in front of you. L'dabra alehem toiva. L'hashiv es chamas l'mehem. Here they're repaying evil for good. Why? Why am I so good to them? What did I do good for them? I'm telling them to basically make this being true. What am I saying? No, but I was always davening for them. I always defended them to Hashem. So here's the tzaddik who's telling everyone this land's going to be destroyed and you're going into exile and so forth. And they all have tinus on him. And he's like, I always, when I daven, I'm always telling Hashem how good you are. What do you want from me? So this is the Toiva Tachas Ra. Amazing thing. This is the Ra Tachas Toiva. They paid him Ra Tachas Toiva by digging a pit and trying to kill him because says Yirmiyah, always said good about them to Hashem. Okay, now look at the iron over here. By the way, just look at the next pasuk. Lachein, what does he want? What does he want them to get? It's a triple irony here because he's talking to Hashem and he's saying, look how bad these people are that they repaid good for bad. And what is the good that I did to them? That I always said good things about them. And now I'm done. Now here's what I want you to do. Lachein, Tainis b'nei L'ra, which I didn't realize this, but this might also have to do with our story, but in a very deep way, which we'll leave for another time. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Lachein, here's what Yirmiyah wants Hashem to do. Tainis b'nei L'ra. I want their sons to die in hunger, and something like the cherev. The wives should be widowed and bereft, and the men should be killed, and their youth should go die in war. And it keeps going. Okay, right. Wow. Okay, now, what did Yosef tell the brothers? You guys paid evil instead of good. What does he want to do to them now? He wants to keep them prisoner, and their families at home are going to die from hunger, right? So it's playing on the Yosef story. There's a hunger, and your wives are going to be widowed and agunis. Okay, fine. But okay, that's just an interesting point. But amazing thing, why did Yirmiyah say that they paid good instead of evil? Because I always said good things about them. Now let's go back. As some of the haters say, the story didn't start in Perek Mem Dalet. Where did the story start with Yosef and his brothers?
Start with the dreams.
Yeah, before the dreams. What's the first thing that we know about Yosef and the brothers? Vayave Yosef es di basam ra'a. Who started this whole business? So again, you see in light of Yirmiyah says they paid back Toiva instead of Ra. A spirit runs that day, threw me in the pit. Why threw me in the pit? I always said good things about them. Ah, wait, okay. But Yosef, who said bad things about the brothers, actually deserves to get thrown into a pit. And here, what's his big tie against the brothers? You guys are ingrates. You mishalim Ra tachas Toiva. No, that's not the story. The story is the mishalim, whatever, Ra tachas Ra, because really the Ra starts with Yosef. So there's a very important question over here. This paying Ra tachas Toiva is you don't have to read it just like in context. This is a fundamental question about the whole Yosef story. Who started, right? And we know Yosef started the Ra. And here's this big time on the brothers. Don't pay Toiva tachas Ra. You should never throw me into a pit. I mean, in light of Yirmiyah, we understand this is a much bigger time. Don't throw me into a pit. But meanwhile, we know that Yosef is the one who brought it upon himself, because he wasn't speaking Toiv on them as Yirmiyah was. And therefore Yirmiyah had justifiably said, don't pay Toiva tachas Ra. But Yosef, don't pay Ra tachas Toiva. But Yosef did Ra. Right? But there's another thing we have to realize about Yosef and his evil doing. Yosef is going to tell the brothers in Parashas Vayigash, and then, actually more significantly, in Parashas Vayechi, Perek Nun Pasuk Chaf. What's he going to tell them? This is the whole punchline, and this is the punchline of the whole Yosef story. This is what the whole Yosef story is leading up to this climax. He wants to be able to say the following. Perek Nun Pasuk Chaf. Atem chashavtem olai ra'a, Elokim chashava l'toiva. You meant evil, but God meant good. Okay? And this is something we discussed by Arichos. This is Yosef's big chiddush. Yosef's chiddush is that man can do, and man should do. That's Yosef's chiddush. The man should do what is evil according to the man's metrics. Man's moral metrics, and by doing evil, he's creating a possibility for God to show how what seemed to be evil actually is good. And the only way that can happen is if we do some evil. That is Yosef's opinion. So by Yava Yosef Dibasam Ra, you know why he brought Dibur Ra? Not because he believes in evil. Of course not. There's no such thing as evil. Everything's good. But everything is so good, even things that we can't understand why they're good. And the way that we're going to achieve that kind of revelation of something that we can't understand being good, being turned into good, is by doing something that we don't understand as being good, which is what we call evil. This is the whole Yosef story, and that's the punchline, that's how it begins. So Yosef's whole story is about what you think is Ra is really Toiva. So Yirmiyah says, how come they're paying me Ra tachas Toiva? I spoke good about them. And Yosef says to the brothers, you're paying me Ra tachas Toiva? But we're supposed to read that and say, Yosef's telling us a big chiddush here, because Yosef is already setting the stage for the fact that even though he saved Diba Ra, actually he's doing them the biggest favor. And then they're throwing into the pit is all because they don't understand what's Toiv and what's Ra. They think they know what's Toiv and what's Ra, but really something that could appear to be Ra could turn out to be Toiv. See, so his argument of Lo Mishalam Tam Ra Tachas Toiva is
so the of intentions?
it's what's it called? It's foreshadowing that we're going to eventually realize, look back and say what was Diba Ra was actually Toiv. Yeah. Okay. What were we saying?
So it's about like an intent.
What the intent? What do you mean? I'll go punch you in the face.
Right.
Okay. Now, what's my intent? So it's a weird intent. Every single book of morals will say it's bad. And I'm asking to that. I understand there's such a thing as ethics, and according to that, it's bad. But I want to mix things up a little bit so that God can reveal how even through being punched in the face, which is l'chayra according to every single metric bad, after being good things could come out. you don't like it? That's Yosef Shita. It's a great Shita.
Okay, but then so Yosef himself,
Prince of Darkness, yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, like when he's doing whatever it is.
How can it be Toiva? What's your question?
He's not doing Toiva. He's saying, listen, I'm doing what I want. And God's going to take care of it.
Oh, so you're saying how can he call it Toiva? It's nothing. No.
Or Ra.
Oh, no, 1 second. He could call it Toiva because everything's Toiv, but then you can't call them what they're doing Ra either.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So, or you could say intention, maybe.
Yeah, maybe if he intended it to be good, but everyone thought that, but he really had more. He was a dreamer. He understood. He had a different.
Right. He has a different plane that he's operating on.
No, he was not very different.
Right.
Okay, fine.
Right, but even though according to ethics it's not good.
Okay, your ethics are for you.
On the dream plane it is good.
I'm going to do for my dream, yeah.
One second, was that a cry? Okay, still listen now. On the dream plane it is good, and somehow you could live there somehow or another. Okay, that's interesting to think about.
And that was the core argument, right, with the brothers of Yosef, right?
Yeah.
They don't like the dream.
Exactly, right. No, that's exactly what they don't hold it. Right. No, they don't want people to operate. They want to understand Hashem, which means to say that's their big thing is Das Hashem, which means to say that we're going to do everything according to our best understanding. And this business that we should do something that according to understanding is evil is basically saying that God and us are not operating hand in hand. That's the whole Yosef. That's the whole Yosef's Chiddush, that God is in heaven, we are on earth, we're far away from each other, therefore we can only have dreams, not nevuah. We can't operate in tandem.
Right.
What does it mean not operating in tandem? It means we do things that are wrong. That's what it means. Same thing. It's all the same thing. Okay, you're asking some good questions, which I don't know the answers to exactly how this works. No, but I'm just pointing. You see, I'm pointing at the theme. The questions are very deep, but the theme is that Yosef here is asserting that actually things are the opposite of what it appears to be, and even how it's described in the Torah, because that's Yosef's big kunst, that something could be an act of ra and turn into really be Torah. Okay, so now with this idea, I want to go back to the Kesef. What the Kesef was doing here, right? Well, I asked the question,
Yeah.
He's putting the Gavia, fine, why is he putting the Kesef? So now, we know what the Kesef is for. Right? The Kesef, he told them in Perek Mem Gimel, Pasuk Kav Gimel, he said, Al Tiro, your God and the God of your fathers has given you a gift, right? He planted it. And as we explained there, he was telling them, don't be afraid of me. The purpose of this action was to induce fear of Hashem, fear of your fathers. Okay? And we furthermore spoke about the Perek in Mishlei. Take a look at Mishlei Perek Beis, where it says, Im tavakshena, Perek Beis Pasuk Dalid, Im tavakshena hakesef ucha machtamonim tach pesena, oz tavin yiras Hashem. If you seek yiras Hashem, like silver, and look and search for it like a matmoin, that's the word that Yosef used, then you'll understand yiras Hashem b'das elikim timtza. So when he's telling them, Al tiro, this is from God, this is an allusion to the fact that look at God does wondrous things. He plants the kesef as a matmain, and that's how you have to think about Yiras Hashem. Yiras Hashem is this treasure that's in your sack. You just have to look for it. It's an amazing thing. Beautiful mashal, right? Just like Yosef said, the treasure in your sack is a miraculous thing which induces you to fear God. So everyone says the pasuk in Mishlei has this treasure. They just have to look for it, open up, and that's where you can find it. That's where you find Yiras Hashem. Beautiful mashal. Okay, now. So now, okay, that explains why the kesef is in their sacks. Well, what about the Gavia? Could the Gavia be there also because maybe their God took the Gavia and gave it to them? Yeah. Same way he took the kesef, which is, the kesef is rightfully Yosef's. They gave it to Yosef, right? He says, your God gave you the kesef. It's mine. God decided it belongs to you. What about the Gavia? Maybe the Gavia is there because their God and the God of their fathers wants to induce Yira. Now that doesn't work for the Gavia. You know why? Because the Gavia...
Oh, they know they had it.
No. So what? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They didn't know they had the Kesef either. And yet when they brought it back and they said, we brought the Kesef, I don't know, we didn't know who it. And he's like, no, your God gave it to you. And they accepted that. They were like, okay, fine. I hear it. Interesting shot. Cool. We didn't know he does that. Taka, they had Yira. Or they didn't have Yira. That was a whole shmooze. Didn't work. And whatever, we spoke about that. They were supposed to shift gears and get into Yira mode and it didn't quite work. Okay, so maybe again, same way the Kesef is there again because Nachamol Hashem is making miraculous things that induce Yira. So maybe he's also moving the Gavia to induce Yira. Now, there's two problems with that. The Gavia is Kinkasha Azach. The Gavia is a drinking thing. And the Gavia, more significantly, is a Nichush thing. The God of their fathers, Yaakov, Lo Nachash B'Yaakov Lo Kesem B'Yisrael, Yaakov of all people, and Yaakov said, of course, no one has the Trufim. No one would steal the Trufim. There's a big machlokes Yaakov and Rachel. Yaakov held that there's no pshat in stealing the Trufim. No one would steal it. He was certain no one stole it. But the Ma'aser Rachel means that he held that they shouldn't steal it. Rachel held we should. Spoke about this then. That Yaakov is this anti-nichush figure. He doesn't consider the Trufim to have any to be worth stealing. Whatever it is, whatever's going on. Rachel Pashtas, Rachel stole them because she wanted them. That's a bunch of pshat. And Yaakov's like, why would anyone steal them? So Yaakov holds Trufim are nothing, and Rachel holds Ziyah. Now, why would the God of their fathers, Yaakov, give them a Gavia, a Nichoshtu. Nah, that's not, Hashem doesn't like that. That's an idolatrous kind of utensil. So the Gavia is the one thing that cannot be, Hashem didn't put it there to give them a matmai. So what did happen? You know what happened? Look at the end of how did the Gavia get there? Look at the end of the parish. I know you know how it got there. But what's the spiel? The spiel is, look at the end of Parshas Miketz. It's Vayomer Yehuda, Pasuk Tezayin. But keep your Mishlei. Okay, we'll have to look back at Mishlei soon. In Pasuk Tezayin, Vayomer Yehuda, what can we say? How can we justify ourselves? Halakim Matzah Es Avoyin Avodecha. This is God. Yehuda doesn't say, you got us, we stole the Gavia. We didn't steal the Gavia. He doesn't think Binyamin stole the Gavia. We'll get the Medrash says he stole it, whatever. I mentioned that earlier. But leave that aside. The Pasuk says, Yehuda said, God planted it there. So God gave us the Kesef, that's a miracle, fine. That's good, we fear God. But God put the Gavia there, that's God putting Treif Zachin, and it's an Avodah Zarah thing. That's God marking us with sin. Okay? And now, instead of us finding, remember the pasuk says, if you search for Kesef, in Mishlei Perek Beis pasuk Dalet, Az Tav and Yiras Hashem v'das Elokim Timtza. But instead of us finding Das Elokim, says Yehuda, Elokim Matzah Avin. Instead of us finding Hashem, Hashem has found that we are deficient. And now look further in that parak in Mishlei. It's an amazing thing. So the pasuk in Mishlei says, search for it. Search for it. You'll find Yiras Hashem. Okay? And then when you find that Yiras Hashem, what's going to happen? So you'll have Yiras Hashem and Das Hashem. Das Elokim. And that's going to be your protection, as it says in pasuk Zayin. It's going to protect your path, pasuk Ches. You'll understand tzedek u'mishpat good. You'll have chachma. It's going to protect you. What's it going to protect you from? Pasuk Yud Beis. Latzilcha miderech ra. Meish medaber tapuches. It's going to save you from the evil, from the person that talks v'nahapach stuff, upside down things. People that leave the paths of straightness and go in the paths of darkness. And they're happy to do ra. And they're happy with tapuches ra. And their paths are krum. This is Yosef. This is Yosef as he's presenting themselves then. Because Yosef is presenting himself as on the derech ra, who's happy to do ra, because he says, and really he's the one who did ra, but he didn't. You know why? Because he's an ish tapuches. He's an ish medaber tapuches. He's calling toiv what we call ra. Now the truth is that Yosef is right. Right? The truth is that Yosef is right. Because the truth is that the Gavia is not there as a siman of their avoin. But at this point where they're presenting that, Yosef is showing them, look, you guys have a sin. What's your sin? Your sin is that what is their sin, Lamais? That they sold Yosef, right? What did they do wrong? They sold Yosef. This is the sin that they're carrying around with them. So, because you have a sin, you sold me, you think you have Das Elokim, you know the difference between Ra and Toiv, but the very fact that you sold me means that you don't know the difference between Ra and Toiv, you don't have Das Elokim, and therefore I'm going to tell you what's Ra and Toiv. You're not going to know what's Ra and Toiv. In fact, you're going to be suffering this state in the end of Parshas Miketz where you're seem to be exposed to the derech ra, person who's happy to do ra, and yagilu tapuchas ra. So first of all, I was saying that there's a lot of mention of ra over here, and also the mention of tapuchas, because that's Yosef's koyach is to be mishapech, to turn something ra and turn it into toiv. But again, one of them is in actuality, one of them is what's presenting over here.
So it really goes back to that core idea that they didn't listen to Yosef.
Right, exactly.
To listen to the world. The natural Yosef was understood to bring them back together so they could come back to that place where they could hear. Yes.
In other words, and this is, by the way, the other meaning of Tzaharayim, which we spoke about. We'll get back to that pasuk now if we have a few more minutes. We'll end about 5 more minutes. We'll get to this soon. That the other meaning in Amos of the fact that they ate bat Tzaharayim, Tzarayim is noon, when it's the clearest, is that they were plunged into darkness, as they lost their ability to see the Nevuah. Right. And now is when Yosef is trying to bring it back. And here also you'll notice that in Mishlei, the bad guy is called the one who goes in the paths of darkness. And as Yosef represents darkness, represents dreams and the lack of Nevuah, and even leads the brothers into darkness, but because they mistreated him. In other words, the fact that Yosef is a problematic figure, that not only is he in darkness because he wants to be in darkness, but he brings his brethren who can't fathom what he's up to, he causes them to err and be plunged into darkness as well. And now they have to work together with him. Okay, but at this point in the story, they're just suffering the fact that they Hashem did discover their avon. That's indicated by the Agviya, and that exposes them to the evil person described in Mishlei. Now I want to look a little further. The next pasuk in Mishlei, Perek Beis pasuk Tezayin, we're up to there. Then it starts talking about how this Yiras Hashem will save you from the Isha Zara, the foreign woman who forgot the bris of her God, and her house goes down to death. Okay, now this is, I maintain, I won't go into the rise over here, but this is also clear in Mishlei, that Mishlei, when it talks about the foreign women and these psukim about these prakim about the young man who has to learn the importance of Yira and Chachma instead of being knighted to women and other problems, but mostly women. So Yosef, who as a young man has to grow up and demonstrate and become educated and become wise, also has to go through this test with a woman. She's the Isha Zara, the Nachriya. And so Yosef, if he has Yiras Hashem, which he says he does, then it means he didn't follow the woman. But as we mentioned earlier, there's like an alternative story here, which is that Yosef goes to Mitzrayim, and instead of him maintaining his tzidkus and growing through that, maybe he became a Mitzri. Maybe Taka was nichshal with the Eishes Betifar. Maybe he's Taka, a bad guy, and maybe the brothers are now going to suffer from him. So now when the brothers are presented to the Yosef that may harm them, the Yosef that says, look, you guys, there's an avon here, and we're all suffering for that avon, and maybe I'm also evil, perhaps. Why would he be evil? Because that would suggest that he did follow the Isha Zara. So here also the pasuk saying, okay, you need Yiras Hashem to save you. You have to search for it and find the Yiras Hashem in order to save you from the Isha Zara. If you don't have Yiras Hashem, then you're exposed to the evil person, the Medav Tapuchais, and you're exposed to the Isha Zara. That Isha Zara, that is the one that influenced Yosef and maybe kept him anar. Okay, that's all. By the way, there's one more thing. That what just mentioned is parenthetically. This business of the woman who leads to death, I think, has an association with Rachel, who died. There's this whole connection between women and death. It gets back to the first woman, Chava, and as I mentioned, Rachel is the one who takes the Trofim, and Yaakov doesn't, and Trofim is associated with death, and women are associated with death, and there's this whole danger, okay? That's a parenthetical thing. I want to say one more thing about Tzarayim, going back to Amos. So I mentioned that in Amos, the other place which tells us of Pshat and eating at noon, this is in Amos Perek Ches, and there the pasuk makes the point about the sun setting at noon, meaning the Nevi'im will lose the Nevuah, and it's referring to the brothers who lost their Das Hashem by virtue of how they acted towards Yosef. And now by eating at the Tzarayim, he's saying, okay, it's time for the Nevuah to return. Okay, this for your Nevuah to return. This is in Perek Ches and Amos pasuk Tes. There it says the sun will set by Tzarayim. And the next pasuk says, okay, and v'achshachti la'aretz b'yoyim or, I'll make it dark on a yoyim or. So here we have a boiker or, and Yosef, who's the one who's on the darkei choshech, brings back the brothers, right? So it seems to be light for the brothers, and Yosef is like, no, we're back into the darkness of Mitzrayim. And the next pasuk over there says that the day afterwards will be like a bitter day. So I'm going to maybe connect that to, they had a Tzarayim, but it didn't work out, and the next day was bitter. Okay. What I want to point out is just in the next Perek, in Perek Tes, Pasuk Dalet, it says Hashem is going to punish these people. V'samti eini aleihem l'ra'ah v'lo l'toiva. Okay? Here Yosef said to the brothers, Lo mishalamtem ra'ah tachas toiva. And Yehuda in Parashat Vayigash says, you told us to bring our little brother, v'asima eini olav. And Rashi says, v'asima eini olav. This is v'asima eini olav. That you want to keep him. Asima eini olav. You want to say, oh, nice guy, but nice to meet you. So here the pasuk is saying, no, the punishment is that the simas ayin could turn into evil instead of good by the people who who knows their bearings on Ran Toiv. So Yosef, who's the one who's playing around with the definitions of Ran Toiv, and now he's forcing the brothers to confront that they themselves are not so clear about Ran Toiv. Turns to seem as I and the Rav Lo Toiv. Okay. Now I want to just end with perhaps an answer why it's important that the Gavia is Kesef. Right? Why is it mentioned that the Gavia is Kesef? Because here we said the rest of the Kesef that was in the sack was a gift from Hashem. Only the Gavia can't be a gift from Hashem. Why? Because why would Hashem give you an idolatrous tool? But was it actually a tool for Avodah Zarah? Because Yosef wasn't really Menachesh. So it appeared to be, to those who don't know, Kesef Zahav, meaning because they were looking at it like just a tool for Avodah Zarah, which could be Kesef Zahav. But in fact, what was it really? It was actually just another piece of Kesef. Like the rest of it, just like the rest of the Kesef was from Hashem, so this Kesef also could have been a gift from Hashem, L'kush to the Milsa. So it could be that's the significance of it really being Kesef, because it's only Yosef pretending that it's an item of Nichush, but really it's the same thing as the rest of the Kesef in the sack. All right?